Welcome to Immortal Works Flash Fiction Friday, Episode 70. Read Remembrance by Brynna C. Jones. Read by John Grundvig. The morning light woke her, and as she opened her eyes, all she could see was the tip-tops of the pine trees and fluffy clouds rolling in the sky. She was shivering and cold. Her cloak was covered in little beads of cool morning dew. She vaguely remembered a dream that she'd had, that her and her friends had had a paint fight throughout the woods, the scarlet liquid coating their hands and clothes and the surrounding forest floor as they shrieked and danced around each other, spreading the paint further. The girl remembered that the paint had turned her white cloak a glistening vermilion. It was an odd dream to have. She sat up and found that her friends lay sleeping around her, still covered in the paint. Not a dream, then. Since hours had passed, the paint was thick and dried to her cloak and in her hair. She noticed an odd smell, one that twinged her nose. She didn't like it. She nudged the friend nearest to her, intending to ask if she smelled the odd scent as well, but she did not wake. The girl stood and realized that she only wore her cloak, her body naked beneath. She wrapped the cloak around herself, regardless of the sticking, dripping wet. She gazed down at her friends lying around at her feet. They looked torn and broken, like the doll her brother had once ripped apart when she'd made him angry. It had lain rendered unmoving as well. Shaking to the point of convulsions, the rest of the dream came flooding back into her mind like a crimson tide. Red, but not paint. Blood. Everywhere. Blood was everywhere. And the girls, her friends, were screaming and crying and running away from her. She'd remembered her pain, and then clothes tearing, her cloak the only thing that had survived the change. Then her claws ripping through their flesh. Her teeth. The girl started wailing, lonely in the forest, a howling sound of pure heartbreak and horror and hopelessness. And a long howl answered back. She froze in her weeping. Her breath caught in her throat like a pigeon in the claws of a cat. She looked around herself, searching the forest line, and she found the silhouette of a man. They studied one another, her weighing the danger he could possibly present. He spoke. "It's time to come home," he said. She stepped forward once, and again, until she was running toward the man with a desperation that no logical part of her mind understood. Crying, she tripped and stumbled toward him, catching her bare foot on a root until it tore the skin. She didn't stop, though, just kept running toward him until they stood face to face, him with a calm smile, her panting for breath. He took her bloody hands in his, not bothered in the least, and spoke. "Happy birthday," he said warmly, and welcomed her with open arms. Thanks for listening. You can follow the author of this week's story on her Instagram, _Brynna C. Jones _. And if you have a story you want to read on our podcast, submit it by going to www.immortal-works.com. And please share, subscribe, like, and rate our podcast. It really helps us to expand our audience. And if you don't, we'll know. And things could go very badly for your dear old Nana.